Captain Zextar slammed his clawed fist on the metal table as the holographic display flickered to life aboard the mercenary vessel Iron Fang. The bridge was filled with the mixed scents of different alien species, each bringing their own particular odor of sweat, fear, and anticipation. His crew of 23 hardened killers gathered around him, their various eyes gleaming with interest at the prospect of easy money. "Listen up, you worthless scum," Zextar growled, his reptilian features twisting into what passed for a grin among his people. "We have received the easiest contract in the history of this ship. Some corporate dogs want us to eliminate a small research outpost on a backwater planet called Kepler 442b. The crew exchanged glances and several began to chuckle. Krex, a massive four-armed Krillian warrior whose chitinous armor bore the scars of 100 battles, leaned forward with obvious disappointment. "Captain, please tell me this is some kind of joke. You called us all here for a simple extermination job?" "Wait for it," Zextar said, his yellow eyes gleaming with amusement. "The targets are humans." The laughter that erupted from the assembled mercenaries was loud enough to echo through the ship's corridors. Nixa, a Nexari assassin whose skin could shift colors like a chameleon, actually wiped tears from her large black eyes. "Humans? Those weak little pink things that can barely lift their own body weight? Captain, my youngest spawn could handle this contract alone." Gorvak heavy weapons specialist Thrum pounded his massive fists together, creating a sound like thunder. "This is insulting. Humans do not even have natural weapons or armor. They die if you look at them wrong. Why are we wasting fuel on this?" Zextar held up a clawed hand for silence. "Because the payment is 50,000 credits per head, and there are 12 of them. That is 600,000 credits for what should amount to target practice." The complaints stopped immediately. Even seasoned killers had to respect that kind of money for such simple work. Krex's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. 50,000 each? What could humans possibly know that is worth that much? "Some kind of mineral research," Zextar replied, pulling up the intelligence report. "The corporate contact says they have discovered something valuable and need the entire team eliminated before they can report their findings. Standard corporate cleanup job." Vex, a snake-like Cythrian whose poison could kill most species in seconds, slithered closer to examine the data. "The target location is a temporary research station with basic power systems and minimal defenses. No military presence detected, no weapon signatures. They do not even have a proper security force." "Of course they do not," laughed Nixa. "Humans are too weak to be soldiers. They make decent slaves sometimes, but only for simple labor. Their reaction time is terrible, their strength is pathetic, and they cannot see properly in anything but bright light." Thrum nodded his great head. "I have crushed human skulls with my bare hands. Their bones break like dried twigs. This will be over in minutes." Zextar scrolled through the personnel files. 12 targets confirmed. Dr. Lisa Martinez, the team leader, specializes in geological surveys. Jake Thompson, mineral analysis. Amy Rodriguez, communications and data management. Dan Walker is listed as security chief, but his background shows he was some kind of human military person before becoming a researcher. "A human soldier?" Krex's laughter was like grinding metal. "That is like calling a grub a warrior. Human military training consists of teaching them which end of a weapon to point away from themselves. The intelligence report confirms minimal defensive capability." Zextar continued. "Basic energy barriers around the research station. Standard. Communication equipment and some kind of ground vehicles for sample collection. Nothing that could threaten a military vessel or trained combat team." Vex coiled his long body into a comfortable position. "Captain, with respect, why are we all going? 2 or 3 of us could handle 12 humans without breaking a sweat. This feels like using a fusion cannon to kill insects." "Because the corporate contact is paying premium rates and expects professional results," Zextar replied. "They want the entire research team eliminated, all data destroyed, and any evidence of mineral discoveries removed. Clean and thorough." Nixa flexed her natural camouflage, her skin shifting through various shades. "I could infiltrate their base and kill them all in their sleep. Humans sleep for 8 hours every day like helpless babies. They would never even know I was there. Or we could simply bombard the station from orbit, suggested Thrum. Turn the whole place into glass and be done with it. Zextar shook his head. The contract specifically requires ground assault and confirmation of individual eliminations. Our employers want to be certain that every human is dead and that we recover any research data before destroying it. Krex examined his weapons with practiced efficiency. How long do you estimate this operation will take, Captain? Including travel time, perhaps 6 hours total. Most of that will be getting to the planet and back. The actual combat should last minutes. The crew began making preparations with casual efficiency. This was routine work for them, hardly worthy of serious planning. They had eliminated entire space stations full of hardened criminals, wiped out military outposts defended by trained soldiers, and conquered fortified positions that had held out against regular armies. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy on the surface of Kepler 442b, Dr. Lisa Martinez knelt beside a strange crystalline formation that jutted from the rocky ground like frozen lightning. The mineral samples they had been collecting showed properties that defied current understanding of physics and chemistry. Jake, take a look at this reading, she called to her colleague, who was operating a portable analysis unit nearby. The energy output from this deposit is unlike anything in our databases. Jake Thompson wiped sweat from his forehead as he walked over to examine her findings. The molecular structure keeps changing every time I scan it. It is like the crystal is alive somehow. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her communication console where she had been transmitting their daily reports back to Earth. The company is really excited about these discoveries. They have approved extended research time and additional funding. Dan Walker stood near the entrance to their temporary research station, checking the perimeter sensors out of habit. Something felt wrong to him, though he could not explain what. His military training had taught him to trust his instincts even in seemingly safe situations like this scientific mission. Everything looks quiet out there, he reported to the others. No unusual activity on any of the sensors. None of the humans realized that death was already traveling toward them through the void of space, carried by creatures who considered them nothing more than weak prey to be eliminated for money. The Iron Fang dropped out of hyperspace 3 days later with barely a whisper, its stealth systems hiding the ship from any primitive sensors the humans might possess. Captain Zextar stood on the bridge watching the blue and green planet grow, larger on the main screen, already bored with what promised to be the most routine job of his career. Sensor sweep complete, reported Navigation Officer Zeith from her station. Single research facility detected on the northern continent. 12 life signs confirmed, all human. No defensive installations, no military vessels in system. Perfect, Zextar muttered. Krex, prepare your assault team. Standard elimination protocol. Kill everything that moves and destroy all data storage systems. The four-armed Krillian warrior saluted with all his limbs simultaneously. It will be done quickly, Captain. We go in hard and fast, overwhelm them before they can even understand what is happening. 2 hours later, the assault shuttle touched, down 0.5 kilometer from the human research station under cover of darkness. The facility looked exactly as described in the intelligence reports. A cluster of prefabricated buildings connected by covered walkways, surrounded by basic energy barriers that would stop wild animals but nothing more serious. Krex led his team of 8 mercenaries across the rocky ground, their advanced armor making them nearly invisible to human eyes in the dim starlight. Remember, these are just humans, he whispered into his comm unit. Stay alert for the security chief, but do not expect real resistance. They reached the outer perimeter without incident. Nixa used her natural abilities to scout ahead, her skin shifting to match the colors of rock and shadow. I count 4 humans still awake, she reported. 2 in the main laboratory, 1 in communications, 1 patrolling the outer fence. The patrolling one must be their security chief, Krex decided. Take him out first, then we sweep through the buildings room by room. But as they prepared to breach the perimeter, Dan Walker was already moving. His military instincts had been screaming warnings for hours, and he had quietly activated every defensive system the research station possessed. Motion sensors, thermal imaging, even the geological survey equipment had been repurposed into an early warning network. Lisa, Amy, Jake. He called softly into his radio. "We have uninvited guests. 8 contacts approaching from the south, moving in military formation with advanced camouflage." Dr. Martinez looked up from her mineral samples with confusion. "Are you sure? Who would come here?" "I do not know and I do not care," Dan replied, his voice taking on the hard edge of his former military training. "Everyone grab emergency packs and move to the secondary lab. Now." The humans scattered with surprising speed and coordination. Jake Thompson activated the automated systems that would lock down all research data and begin emergency transmission protocols. Amy Rodriguez switched the communications array to broad-spectrum distress signals, while simultaneously downloading critical files to portable drives. Lisa Martinez secured her most valuable samples and activated the facility's self-destruct systems just in case. Meanwhile, the mercenaries had reached the outer fence and were cutting through the energy barriers with contemptuous ease. "Pathetic," muttered Thrum as he tore a hole large enough for the assault team. "A child could break through these defenses." They spread out to surround the main building, expecting to catch sleeping humans in their beds. Instead, they found empty rooms and activated security systems that should not have existed. Motion-activated lights began strobing in patterns that hurt their eyes and confused their visual targeting systems. "Where are they?" Vex hissed into his communicator. "The thermal scanners show the building is empty." "Impossible," Krex snarled. "Humans cannot move this quickly or quietly." That was when Dan Walker opened fire from a position they had not even known existed. His weapon was nothing more than a standard industrial laser cutter, but he had modified it using principles from the geological research equipment. The beam that struck the lead Krillian warrior burned through his supposedly impenetrable armor, like it was made of paper. The mercenaries dove for cover as more shots came from multiple directions. Jake Thompson had positioned himself in the mineral storage facility and was using the crystalline samples to create focused energy bursts that interfered with alien shield generators. Amy Rodriguez had hacked into the facility's automated systems and was using the mining robots as mobile weapons platforms. "This is impossible," Nixa whispered as she pressed herself against a wall, her camouflage flickering as stress disrupted her concentration. "Humans do not fight like this. They do not adapt this quickly." Dr. Martinez appeared on the communication system, her calm voice echoing through speakers around the compound. "Attention hostile forces. You have attacked a legitimate research operation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Krex laughed despite the dangerous situation. "Consequences? What consequences could humans possibly threaten us with?" His question was answered when the ground beneath 2 of his warriors suddenly gave way. Jake Thompson had used his geological expertise to identify weak points in the bedrock and had spent the last hour placing shaped charges that turned the terrain itself into a weapon. The 2 mercenaries fell into a pit lined with sharp mineral spikes. Amy Rodriguez had meanwhile broken into their shuttle's communication systems and was feeding false information to the orbiting ship. "Captain, assault team reports successful. Elimination of all targets," she transmitted in perfect imitation of Krex's voice. "Beginning data recovery operations." On the Iron Fang, Zextar relaxed in his command chair. "Excellent. Signal when you are ready for extraction." But on the ground, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The humans had turned their research station into a maze of deadly traps and killing zones. Every corridor had been blocked or redirected. Every room contained surprises that exploited weaknesses the mercenaries did not even know they possessed. Dan Walker moved through the complex like a ghost, using maintenance tunnels and emergency passages that allowed him to strike from unexpected angles. His modified weapons were crude by galactic standards but devastatingly effective because they used principles the aliens had never encountered. Lisa Martinez had discovered that the mineral samples they were studying could be weaponized by mixing them with common chemicals from their laboratory supplies. The resulting explosives were unstable and dangerous, but they worked perfectly for creating shaped charges and proximity mines. By dawn, half the assault team was dead or wounded, and the survivors were pinned down in defensive positions while the humans controlled the high ground and all the supply routes. Krex finally admitted defeat and called for emergency extraction. "Captain, we need immediate support," he gasped into his communicator. The humans are not what we expected. They fight like devils, and they learn faster than anything I've ever seen." Zextar stared at his communication console in disbelief as the truth became clear. "How many casualties?" "4 dead, 3 wounded, and we have not eliminated a single target. Captain, these are not normal humans. They must have hidden military training or alien technology." "Impossible. Our intelligence was perfect. Begin withdrawal immediately." As the surviving mercenaries retreated to their shuttle under covering fire, Dr. Martinez watched them go from her command post. "Amy, make sure you recorded everything. Jake, analyze those weapon signatures. Dan, inventory our losses." "Why are we not pursuing them?" Dan asked, though he already knew the answer. "Because we are researchers, not soldiers," Lisa replied. "But if they come back, we will be ready." The shuttle lifted off with its cargo of wounded and demoralized mercenaries, leaving behind the first humans in galactic history to successfully defeat a professional military assault. None of them realized they had just changed the course of interstellar relations forever. Captain Zextar paced the bridge of the Iron Fang like a caged predator, his claws leaving scratches in the metal deck plates with each furious step. The medical bay held 3 wounded mercenaries, and the ship's morgue contained 4 body bags that should never have been filled on such a simple job. His reputation as a professional killer was crumbling with each passing hour. "Sir, we could simply glass the entire facility from orbit," suggested Navigation Officer Zeeth nervously. "A few plasma bombardments would eliminate all targets and destroy any evidence." Zextar whirled on her with blazing yellow eyes. "And tell our employers what exactly? That we needed to use ship weapons against 12 human researchers? That Captain Zextar and his elite crew were defeated by creatures that most of the galaxy considers barely above livestock?" The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Word of this failure would spread through the mercenary community like poison, destroying contracts and reducing the Iron Fang to hauling cargo for mining companies. No self-respecting criminal organization would hire killers who could not handle humans. "We go back," Zextar declared. "Every single member of this crew participates. We cut their power, we cut their water, we cut their communications, and we make them suffer before we kill them slowly. I want to understand how they did this, so it never happens again." Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Lisa Martinez stood in the emergency command center they had established in the deepest part of their underground storage facility. The walls were lined with mineral samples that Jake Thompson had arranged to interfere with scanning equipment, creating a natural shield against orbital surveillance. "Status report," she called to her team as they worked frantically to prepare for the next assault. Dan Walker looked up from the weapons he was modifying using spare parts from their geological equipment. "Perimeter sensors show the alien ship is still in orbit. No movement detected on the ground yet, but they will be back." Amy Rodriguez typed rapidly at her improvised communication station, built from 3 different research computers linked together with fiber optic cables. "I managed to get a message through to the Colonial Administration before they jammed our signals. Help is coming, but it will be at least 2 weeks before any ships can reach us." 2 weeks, Jake muttered as he worked on chemical compounds extracted from the mineral samples. "We need to survive against professional killers for 2 weeks with mining equipment and laboratory supplies." Lisa nodded grimly. "Then we make this planet too expensive for them to take. Every day they spend here costs them money and reputation. Eventually they will decide we are not worth the effort." That afternoon, the mercenaries began their systematic siege. The Iron Fang took position in low orbit and began using focused energy beams to destroy the research station's power generators, water recycling systems, and communication arrays. Within hours, the humans were cut off from all external support and reduced to emergency supplies. But Lisa Martinez had not survived 3 tours as a military engineer by giving up when conditions became difficult. "Jake, how much of that crystalline material do we have stockpiled?" "About 2 tons in various grades and purities," he replied. "Why?" "Because I just figured out how to turn it into a power source." "Amy, start stripping all the copper wiring from the damaged equipment. Dan, we need to create camouflage positions outside the main facility." The humans began working with the focused intensity that had always puzzled other species. While most intelligent races would conserve energy during a crisis, humans seem to become more active and creative when faced with impossible odds. They slept in shifts of 3 hours, maintained constant security watches, and spent every waking moment improving their defenses. Jake Thompson discovered that the mineral samples could be combined with ordinary chemicals from their laboratory to create explosives far more powerful than anything in standard military arsenals. He began placing carefully calculated charges throughout the surrounding terrain, turning the entire research area into a minefield that would activate only when enemy forces approached. Amy Rodriguez used her technical skills to rebuild their communication systems using parts from survey equipment and geological scanners. More importantly, she began monitoring the mercenary ship's transmissions and slowly learning their language and tactical procedures. Dr. Martinez applied her engineering background to create new weapon systems from mining equipment. The industrial fabricators meant for creating sample containers became ammunition factories. The mineral processing units became chemical weapons laboratories. Even the food preparation systems were modified to produce incendiary materials. Dan Walker took charge of tactical planning, using his military experience to analyze enemy behavior and predict their next moves. But he was learning to think like the humans around him, adapting and improvising in ways that no military academy had ever taught. On the third day of the siege, the mercenaries made their second assault. This time they came prepared for human tricks, with better armor, stronger shields, and overwhelming firepower. Nixa used her camouflage abilities to scout ahead while Krex led a team of heavily armed Krillian warriors in a direct frontal assault. They found the research station apparently abandoned and partially destroyed. Thermal scans showed no life signs in any of the buildings. Cautiously, they began to advance through the complex, searching for hidden humans and valuable research data. The first explosion took out 3 mercenaries when they triggered one of Jake's carefully placed charges. The blast was followed immediately by a rain of improvised projectiles launched from concealed positions around the facility. Amy Rodriguez had rigged every piece of mobile equipment to serve as remote-controlled weapons platforms. But the humans were not finished. As the mercenaries took cover and tried to locate their attackers, Lisa Martinez triggered the main surprise. The entire research facility was rigged to collapse in a controlled demolition that would funnel the enemy forces into predetermined killing zones. Tons of rock and metal came crashing down, but instead of burying the mercenaries, the carefully planned destruction created a maze of narrow passages and blind corners, where human mobility and quick thinking provided significant advantages over alien size and strength. Dan Walker led hit-and-run attacks through this artificial terrain, using weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology scavenged from the previous battle. His team moved like ghosts through passages too small for most of the mercenary species, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before return fire could find them. Amy Rodriguez had meanwhile succeeded in hacking into the mercenary shuttle's navigation system. As the aliens tried to coordinate their assault, their own equipment began providing false information about human positions and movements. Communication systems malfunctioned at critical moments, leaving enemy units isolated and confused. By nightfall, the mercenaries had lost 6 more warriors and failed to eliminate a single human target. Even worse, they were beginning to realize that the humans were studying them, learning from each encounter, and adapting their tactics accordingly. "Captain," Krex reported from his field position, his voice tight with something that might have been fear. "The humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They change their behavior every time we develop a counter-strategy. It is like fighting an enemy that evolves during combat." Zextar stared at the planet below and began to understand that he had seriously underestimated what humans were capable of becoming when their survival was threatened. The silence that settled over the Iron Fang's bridge was thick with disbelief as Amy Rodriguez's intercepted transmission played through the ship's communication system. The human woman's voice was calm and professional as she spoke to her teammate about modifying alien energy weapons using principles from their geological research. "Jake, the crystalline matrix from sample batch 7 can amplify the Krillian plasma rifles by approximately 30% if we recalibrate the focusing chambers, according to the molecular resonance patterns we documented last week. Navigation Officer Zeeth stared at Captain Zextar with wide eyes. Sir, she is talking about advanced weapons engineering like she learned it in school. How does a communications specialist know how to modify military hardware? Zextar felt something cold crawling up his spine as he listened to more intercepted conversations. Dr. Martinez was discussing the structural weaknesses in Nexari exoskeletons based on anatomical observations from dead mercenaries. Dan Walker was explaining how to use Gorvac shield generators as improvised explosives by overloading their power cores. They are learning from our dead, he whispered. In 5 days, these humans have become experts on alien biology, technology, and combat tactics. The next transmission made his blood freeze completely. Jake Thompson was speaking to Amy Rodriguez about something they had discovered in the mercenary shuttle's database during one of their raids. The intelligence reports were accurate, Jake said with disturbing cheerfulness. We really are just civilian researchers with no military training beyond Dan's basic background. But look at this data about other human encounters across the galaxy. What other encounters? Amy replied. 3 separate incidents in the last 6 months. A human cargo ship crew fought off 12 pirate vessels using mining equipment. Human colonists on Rigel 7 defeated a full Cythrian invasion force with improvised weapons. And get this, a single human traitor named Billy Rogers killed 47 assassins who tried to eliminate him on Kepler Station. Captain Zexistar grabbed the communication console with shaking claws. Patch me through to Central Command immediately. I need to access all records of human conflicts in the last standard year. What he found in the database made his worst fears seem small and insignificant. Hundreds of reports filed under minor incidents dismissed as statistical anomalies or exaggerated accounts from unreliable witnesses. Human merchants defeating professional raiders. Human miners fighting off claim jumpers. Human settlers repelling organized attacks by trained military forces. Every single report had been classified as impossible or filed under equipment malfunction, because no one in the galactic community could believe that humans possessed any real combat capability. The pattern was clear once someone bothered to look for it, but until now, no one had considered humans worth studying as a potential threat. Sir, Scythe called from her station. I am receiving priority communications from mercenary crews across 3 sectors. They are reporting similar problems with human targets. The communications came flooding in as word spread through the galactic underworld. Captain Vorth of the Crimson Death reported losing his entire crew to 6 human traitors on a routine hijacking. Commander Sek described how human colonists had turned industrial equipment into weapons that could penetrate Krelian battle armor. Most disturbing of all was the report from the notorious assassin known as Ghost, who claimed that a human child had detected his presence and warned an entire settlement despite his perfect stealth technology. Down on the planet's surface, the human research team was methodically dissecting every piece of alien technology they could salvage from the failed assaults. Lisa Martinez had converted the main laboratory into something resembling a military research facility, with workstations dedicated to reverse engineering enemy weapons, analyzing alien biology, and developing new tactical applications for their mineral discoveries. The Nexari nervous system is fascinating, she commented to Jake as she studied tissue samples under a microscope. Their rapid color-changing ability depends on a neural network that is extremely vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies. We can probably build a weapon that will paralyze them instantly. Jake nodded as he worked on dissecting a Krelian weapon that had been damaged in the last battle. Their plasma rifles use a containment system that becomes unstable if you introduce trace amounts of the crystalline material from our samples. We could cause them to explode in their hands. Amy Rodriguez looked up from the alien communication equipment she was rewiring to serve their purposes. I have been monitoring their ship's internal communications. Their captain is starting to panic. He is requesting backup from other mercenary crews and trying to gather intelligence about human combat capabilities. Good, Dan Walker replied, as he tested a new weapon design that combined human engineering with alien components. Fear will make them sloppy and desperate. Desperate enemies make mistakes. But the most terrifying discovery came when Amy succeeded in completely penetrating the Iron Fang's computer systems. The mercenary database contained detailed information about dozens of species, their military capabilities, their weaknesses, and their historical conflicts. "Look at this," she called to her teammates, displaying the information on their improvised screens. "Every other species in the galaxy has specific advantages. Krillians are incredibly strong and tough. Nexari have perfect camouflage. Gorvax can lift 10 times their body weight. Scythrians have natural weapons and poison." "What about humans?" Lisa asked. Amy scrolled through the database entry for humanity and found almost nothing. Intelligence rating, average. Physical strength, below average. Natural weapons, none. Natural armor, none. Special abilities, none. Military threat level, minimal. Jake laughed as he understood the implications. They have no idea what makes us dangerous because they are looking for the wrong things. Every other species relies on what they were born with. We rely on what we can become. Lisa Martinez nodded as she watched her team work with equipment that had not existed a week earlier. Using knowledge they had learned from examining dead enemies, applying scientific principles to create weapons that could defeat opponents who were supposedly superior in every measurable way. "That is exactly right," she agreed. "Other species are limited by their natural abilities. When a Krillian warrior faces a problem, he uses strength. When a Nexari faces a problem, she uses stealth. When a human faces a problem, we figure out what we need to be and then we become that." On the Iron Fang, Captain Zextar was reaching the same terrifying conclusion. The humans below were not just civilian researchers anymore. In 1 week of combat, they had transformed themselves into weapons specialists, military engineers, tactical analysts, and guerrilla fighters. They were learning and adapting faster than any species in recorded galactic history. The most frightening part was that they seemed to enjoy the process. Human transmissions contained laughter, excitement, and satisfaction as they solved each new challenge. They were not just surviving the attacks. They were treating the entire situation like an educational opportunity. "Sir," Zyth reported with obvious fear in her voice. "Long-range sensors detect 3 human vessels approaching this system. Colonial defense ships according to their transponder codes." Zextar felt his world crumble around him. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours at current speed. For the first time in his career as a professional killer, Captain Zextar realized that he might not survive his next battle. The attack came at dawn when Captain Zextar least expected it. His remaining crew of 11 mercenaries had spent the night fortifying their positions around the Iron Fang, preparing for a defensive siege until the approaching human ships arrived. None of them anticipated that 4 civilian researchers would launch an assault on a military vessel, using equipment they had built from mining supplies and alien salvage. Dr. Lisa Martinez led the attack from the north, using a weapon she had, constructed by combining crystalline samples with the power core from a destroyed mercenary shuttle. The device looked like nothing more than an oversized mining tool, but when she activated it, the focused energy beam cut through the Iron Fang's hull armor like it was made of paper. Jake Thompson approached from the east with what appeared to be a simple geological survey drone, but he had packed it with explosive compounds synthesized from their mineral research. The drone flew directly into the ship's engine intake and detonated with enough force to cripple the vessel's main propulsion systems. Amy Rodriguez came from the south, carrying a backpack full of electronic equipment that she had assembled from communication gear and alien technology. As she reached the ship's outer hull, she began uploading a virus she had designed specifically to target the Iron Fang's computer systems. Dan Walker moved in from the west, with a collection of weapons that combined human engineering with alien components. His arsenal included modified Krillian plasma rifles, recalibrated Nexari stealth generators, and improvised explosives based on Gorvax shield technology. The mercenaries inside the ship found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to understand their technology better than they did. Their own weapons began malfunctioning as Amy's virus spread through the ship's systems. Their armor provided no protection against weapons designed specifically to exploit the weaknesses that humans had discovered through battlefield analysis. Captain Zextar retreated to the bridge as his crew was systematically eliminated throughout the ship. The humans moved through the corridors with terrifying efficiency, using tactics that no military academy had ever taught. because no one had ever imagined that researchers could become soldiers so quickly. "This is impossible," he snarled into his communication system as he tried to contact other mercenary crews for assistance. Civilian scientists do not launch boarding actions against military vessels. But the response he received from the Galactic Mercenary Network was even more disturbing than his current situation. Reports were flooding in from across known space about humans defeating professional military forces using improvised weapons and tactics that defied conventional understanding. The passenger liner Golden Dawn had been attacked by pirates near the Vega system. 50 human passengers with no military training had fought off 200 armed raiders using emergency equipment and maintenance tools. The raiders' own weapons had been turned against them after humans figured out how to reprogram their targeting systems during combat. A mining colony on Proxima Centauri had been invaded by a full regiment of Cythrian shock troops equipped with advanced military hardware. The 300 human miners had held out for 6 days using industrial equipment and knowledge of local geology to create defensive positions that professional soldiers could not penetrate. Most shocking of all was the report from the core worlds themselves. A human diplomatic mission had been attacked by assassins from 5 different species while attending a trade conference. The 12 human diplomats had not only survived, but had captured their attackers alive and extracted detailed information about who had hired them. Every report told the same story. Humans were not winning these conflicts through superior strength, speed, or natural weapons. They were winning by learning faster than their enemies could adapt, by turning everything around them into tools of war, by becoming whatever they needed to be in order to survive. Captain Zextar's desperate thoughts were interrupted when Dr. Martinez appeared on the bridge. She walked through the sealed blast doors as if they were not there, using some kind of device that had dissolved the metal barriers without triggering any of the ship's security systems. "Captain Zextar," she said calmly, her voice showing no sign of stress despite having just fought her way through a military vessel. "I believe we need to have a conversation." The reptilian warrior reached for his sidearm but found his hand frozen in place. Jake Thompson had entered behind her carrying a device that projected some kind of localized stasis field, based on principles they had discovered in their mineral research. "How?" Zextar managed to gasp, as Amy Rodriguez and Dan Walker secured the bridge. "How did civilian researchers defeat professional killers?" Lisa Martinez sat down across from him and began explaining with the patient tone she had once used to teach geology students. "You made the same mistake that everyone in the galaxy makes when they look at humans. You focused on what we are instead of what we can become." She gestured to her teammates as they worked to secure the alien technology around them. "Jake was a mineral specialist last week. Today he is an expert in alien explosives. Amy studied communication protocols. Now she can hack any computer system in known space. Dan had basic military training. He has become a tactical genius by studying your combat methods." "But that is impossible," Zextar protested. "Species do not change that quickly. Evolution takes millions of years. Physical evolution does," Amy agreed as she interfaced with the ship's database. "But humans do not rely on physical evolution. We rely on mental adaptation. We learn, we change, we become whatever we need to be." Jake nodded as he examined the bridge's control systems. "Other species are limited by their natural gifts. Krillians are strong, so they solve problems with strength. Nixari are stealthy, so they use stealth. Humans have no special gifts, so we learn to solve problems by understanding them completely." Dan Walker checked the ship's weapon systems and found them completely disabled. "Every species has specific weaknesses because they evolved to be good at specific things. Humans have no specific strengths, which means we have no specific weaknesses either." Dr. Martinez leaned forward and looked directly into the alien captain's eyes. "You came here expecting to kill researchers. Instead, you taught researchers how to become killers. That was your mistake." The Iron Fang's communication system activated with an incoming transmission from the approaching human vessels. "Attention, mercenary vessel. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Colonial Defense Ship Endeavor. You are ordered to surrender immediately or face the consequences." Captain Zextar laughed bitterly. "Colonial Defense Ship? More human researchers playing soldier? Lisa Martinez smiled. Actually, Captain Mitchell graduated from the Terran Naval Academy and has 15 years of military experience. But you are right about one thing. Until this week, none of us were soldiers. She stood up and walked to the communication console. Captain Mitchell, this is Dr. Martinez. We have secured the enemy vessel and captured their commander. Request permission to bring him aboard for questioning. Permission granted, Doctor. We are also receiving surrender requests from 17 other mercenary crews who apparently want to discuss terms before engaging human forces. The galactic underworld had learned its lesson in the span of a single week. Word had spread through every criminal organization, every pirate fleet, and every mercenary company in known space. The species that everyone had dismissed as harmless had proven to be the most dangerous of all, not because of what they were, but because of what they could become when survival was at stake. And now the galaxy would have to live with that knowledge forever.